The shocking truth behind this move by the Vikings has finally come to light, being addressed by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah as to why it happened, and Kwesi dropped a not so subtle hint about what the next move for this team is as week 1 quickly approaches. We're going to break down all that in this episode of Vikings Digest, but first, if you're enjoying this Vikings content, you want to join the nearly 13% of viewers who are already subscribed as we are trying to reach our goal of 2,000 subscribers before the start of the regular season. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can stay up to date on everything Vikings. And with that, I'll hop into the first topic of the day, which is trade truce. So Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was speaking on the Harrison Phillips trade when he had his press conference the other day, saying we want to be fair to the Vikings, but also to Harrison, and we thought this was the best opportunity. Speaking on it forward that these relationships are real, they're not transactional. So when you have to reverse them in that manner, it's tough, but I wouldn't be doing my job as GM of the Vikings if I let that dictate what actions we do. So right off the bat there, Kwesi just setting the record straight, saying that there was no bad blood with this trade and as to why it happened. It was just a means of what it meant for the team, which we're going to hop into in a second. But overall, it's a better opportunity for Harrison Phillips to get what he's due as far as pay and as far as just being a dog on that Jets defense, which he will be, and will be one of the anchors and leaders of that defense and that defensive line, absolutely. But speaking on that D line room as to why Harrison Phillips was traded, he says, I'm always trying to be aware of what could possibly come as far as draft picks and scouting and things like that come down the line or free agency. And then you look as really deep the D line room and thinking about a possible rotation, different things like that, just trying to maximize our resources in the best way we can. So there, where with Minnesota, they went out and they got Jonathan Allen, they got Javon Hargrave to really bolster down this defensive line. And we thought that Harrison Phillips was going to be sticking around for that this season, where even when they brought him in, they brought in those two guys in free agency, there was a lot of rumors around Harrison Phillips being traded just because of the amount of money and just not needing him necessarily. But you can always have as much scary dogs as you can on that defensive line. But lo and behold, eventually he was traded, and it seemed like he was really excited to get things going with the Vikings this season, almost relating to what Adam Thielen said in his press conference, where you got to be where your feet are, and where when he got traded the other day to the Vikings, he was ready to go to practice for the Carolina Panthers and was just fully set on just being a Carolina Panther. Then out of nowhere, suddenly you got to switch and just be a Minnesota Viking again. Same thing happened with Harrison Phillips, where he was just ready to go into this season as a Minnesota Viking, and then in the instant of a day, you're now a New York Jet and have to go over to the East Coast away from the Twin Cities. It sucked to see a guy like that leave this team, but it does make sense as to why they did it, in the sense that they wanted more draft capital, got out and got Adam Thielen and things like that. But Minnesota does not have Harrison Phillips, which does leave a little bit of a gap in the defensive tackle position, but you still have two dogs in Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen that are newly acquired and newly minted into new contracts with this team. But what did you guys think about what Kwesi thought on the trade? It was nice to hear him come out and say that these trades, they do develop relationships. It's not all about the money. It's not all about just moving players and trying to just benefit the team fully. You are caring about the person that is wearing that jersey for your team and has that logo on their helmet. So it goes to show why Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has so much care with this team and in this culture, and why we have one of the best cultures in the NFL. But let us know what you guys had to say about it down in the comments below. But that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is Kwesi's not so subtle hint. So one thing that was brought up in the press conference was cornerbacks, the cornerback position in the cornerback room. And when Kwesi was asked about it, his answer was, we'll always be mindful throughout the season and look at different opportunities. Now, at face value, that could be like, yeah, we'll keep our eyes open, things like that. But we know how Kwesi operates. We've seen him for years now. And what he tends to do when he says something like this, there usually is a move involved. And that is probably what's going to be happening for the Vikings, because when you look at the depth chart there, you have Byron Murphy, you have Isaiah Rodgers, those are dogs. You have Jeff Okudah, who is really starting to turn things around and might have a career resurgence with the Minnesota Vikings because of all the buzz that's coming out of training camp and from Brian Flores and all the other players around him. Then, of course, that's where you get a little bit lacking, where they don't have a lot of really depth beyond that, where you have Dwight McGlothern. They did, unfortunately, lose some other players as well. So there you need a little bit more insurance in the cornerback position. So within that, let's look at their cap space, shall we? They have 16 million or 16.7 million left in cap space for this season. So if we were to do a little bit of window shopping, which you guys have seen this graphic throughout the offseason, you guys know that we've been pulling this up a lot because of players that are still available. Jordan Poyer was recently taken off that board, so count that name out for the purposes of this video. But then you got Stephon Gilmore in there. He's a little bit older. Maybe you bring him back for one more season. You bring a lot of... It would be insane if Minnesota just brought back a bunch of players on the last year of their career. Harrison Smith, Stephon Gilmore, Adam Thielen, where it's just like, hey, let's try and get you a ring to go out on a high note with your career and ride off into the sunset. But of course, if you guys saw the intro of this video, you know the name that I am looking at more than anything, and that is Asante Samuel Jr., where yes, he is on the final year of his rookie contract, where that's why he is a UFA right now. So he does bring a hefty price tag, and it was projected around $13 million, I want to say. So it does bring a little bit of flexibility there for Minnesota, where they have $16 million in space, and you go out and get a guy like Asante Samuel Jr., where we've broken it down how this guy is a dog, and he's the youngest one on this list as far as guys that are absolutely capable there. At only 25 years old, 26 by the midpoint of this season, basically, he is one of the most pedigreed guys on here, where he brings the stats to back it up. He brings the youth to be on this team for a while, and you can sign him to a big contract and backload the hell out of it to help with this current cap situation that you have and kind of kick the can down the road a little bit, which we've seen with a lot of teams. But with Asante Samuel Jr., you bring him in on a 3 to 4 year deal at 25 years old. By the end of that, he's 28. So then he can kind of test the market from there, or you bring him in on a short-term deal after that. I really like the idea of that because the youth and things like that. But again, there was the stuff with his dad's talking about Chris Carter. I don't really think that has any bearing on Minnesota really looking at him. But if you are looking at not the trade route, because with the trades, it's kind of hard to find who's available right now or who's on the block because the season hasn't really gotten going yet. So with Kwesi saying what he said, how you want to keep your eyes open throughout the season and be mindful of all the opportunities, you do have a lot of opportunities there in the free agency pool as far as what is left. Manuel Mosley is still out there. He's not a bad option. He has 7 years of experience. But again, Asante Samuel Jr., with the youth that he has, yeah, he has 4 years of experience. He's at the end of his rookie deal. So it's perfect for Minnesota to go in there and give him his first real contract in the NFL, and you don't have to really find a precedent as far as guys like him or his own contract precedent, where if he was already coming off of a $13 million deal, that's where it gets a little bit tricky for Minnesota, where you have to go up above that because he's entering into what the quote-unquote prime of his career at 25 to 28-year-old range. That's where he's going to be really dominant and really see the best of his abilities. So for Minnesota, why not get him now while you can at a pretty good rate at around $13 million, and with the cap consistently going up every year, you backload that contract as well, and you save so much money in the process, and you still keep your options open as far as people still for this year. Injuries are going to pop up throughout the season, but if you have a contract that's backloaded with a guy like Asante Samuel Jr. to bring extra insurance, because if you can imagine this depth chart with Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, Jeff Okudah, and Asante Samuel Jr., as well as Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus in the back at safety, this secondary goes from looking very questionable to very solid in the matter of one signing that the Minnesota Vikings could literally make right now if they wanted to. And I think they absolutely should. It's absolutely something they should be considering, especially when looking at the current situation with this team. There's a lot of different options Minnesota could go with, but this seems to be the absolute option. But what did you guys think about what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah said? Do you think that absolutely means Minnesota is going to go for another cornerback? Or do you think they're going to ride with what they got now and trust in Dwight McGlothern as that fourth corner? Or do you go out and get a guy like Asante Samuel Jr., put him in as the third corner and put Jeff Okudah at the fourth one just to be extra careful? I'm just saying, it's the Minnesota Vikings. We've seen things that have been very crazy with this team, and you want to be as safe as possible. But let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.